A Gallup poll just confirmed what most of us already knew. 55% of Americans say that their financial situation is getting worse. That is the highest number since 2001. That is higher than the pandemic. That is higher than the 2008 financial crisis. And the number one reason the people cannot survive what is happening right now financially is that they have no emergency fund. Nobody taught us this until today.
When I think about his grace, his freedom, something like a woman prays. I'm grateful for the loving that you gave.
Hey y'all, I'm Chris McLean, business coach, fractional CFO, and your go-to on real talk about ministry, marriage, money, and motivation. Let's get into it. Okay, before we get into what an emergency fund is, how to build one, and all of the things, I want to set the scene as to why this conversation is important today. And not just a little financial tip that you use down the line, but why it is important today. Okay, a Gallup poll conducted just this April, this April said that 55% of Americans say their financial situation is getting worse. Y'all, that number is higher than any point since 2001. Okay, higher than during the pandemic, higher than during the 2008 financial crisis. And this is the fifth consecutive year, and more Americans say that they have a worsening financial situation and it is currently not improving. And so when asked to name their most important financial problem, 31% cited that rising cost and the cost of living is one of the reasons. Energy costs are mentioned by 13% of Americans, 10 percentage points above last year's, which is the highest since 2008, y'all. And nearly half of Americans are concerned about routine healthcare costs, about medical costs going up. I want you to hear that, okay? This is not a bad month. This is not just a rough season. Inflation rose 4.2% from a year ago in May 2026, the highest annual figure since April of 2023. Gasoline prices are up above 40% from a year ago. This is a sustained, extended financial pressure that is squeezing households across our country. And the people who are surviving it are the ones that are not necessarily making the most money. Those are not the ones that surviving it. They are the ones that have built specific financial protection before the pressure even started. The emergency fund. Nobody taught us this. Nobody taught us this. Most of us grew up watching our parents react to financial crises as they happen. We were not taught to prepare for them, not to be proactive for them. We were not taught that. We were taught to survive them, how to get over on the other side. And there is a huge difference. So today we are closing that gap. Okay, let me start with the most basic definition of what an emergency fund actually is. And I want to go deeper than what most people actually do. An emergency fund is a specific amount of money kept in a separate, accessible account that is set aside exclusively for the purpose of unplanned financial emergencies. Okay. It is not your checking account. It is not your savings account where you also keep your vacation money when you're trying to go out of the country. Okay. It is not the money you plan to use for just anything, right? It is money that exists for one purpose only. The one thing or the many things that you did not see coming. That's where the term unplanned comes in. The key word in the definition is literally unplanned. An emergency fund is not when your car needs tires and you knew it was coming. You knew them tires was a little raggedy. You already knew it was coming. It is not for Christmas gifts. Christmas come around every year. You know when it's coming. It is not for that. It is not for a vacation or a home renovation. Okay. It is not for that because again, that is not something that is considered unplanned. Those are planned expenses and they actually belong in a separate savings category. So you can save up for those things. However, that is not what an emergency fund is. The emergency fund is for the income when you get laid off. I'm going to talk about that because baby, I got a whole story about how an emergency fund helped us financially when we lost 2 incomes in 1 year. Okay. The medical bill that arrives 6 months after a procedure. Okay. The roof that starts leaking in November. Nobody prepared for that. Nobody knew about that. Okay. Talking about emergency fund. The engine that goes out the week before the paycheck. You still need that car. You got to get to work. Okay. That's emergency. The situations that would send most people directly into debt. And I will say this, if you do not have an emergency fund, you will lean on debt. And that is why there are a large percentage of U.S. citizens and consumers, or even across the world, that are financially in debt because an emergency happened that they did not plan for, and they lean on that credit card, or they lean on that loan, or they went and got a loan, or whatever the case is. They leaned on it because they needed to take care of it. And the fact of the matter is, there was nothing that existed prior to that situation happening. That is what an emergency fund. And here's what nobody has told us. The emergency fund is not about being pessimistic about life. It's not literally like, oh my gosh, I'm walking around like the worst of the worst and the worst of the worst is going to happen. No, it is about being honest about it, because the reality is situations happen. Life be lifing. Things happen. Income stops unexpectedly. I'm going to talk about it. Cars break down. It just happens. Medical emergencies do not schedule themselves around your budget. You ain't know you was about to break a leg. You ain't know your child was about, you didn't know. Okay. The emergency fund is what stands between a difficult moment and a financial catastrophe. Okay. Financial catastrophe. So that is what an emergency fund is. And again, nobody taught us this. So let's talk about how much do I actually need in an emergency fund? So this is what I'm going to say. And it really is something that most financial coaches do not say. Okay. When you hear about emergency fund, most financial coaches say, save 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. That's what they say. I don't agree with that. I really do not agree with that. And I know there are some textbook answers and all of that, but after knowing this, as well as experiencing this, I want to give you some wisdom. And so I want to challenge you to not just do 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. I want to push you a little bit further and to do 3 to 6 months worth of income. Wait, hold on, catch it. 3 to 6 months worth of income. Now breathe. Everybody breathe. Here's the difference of why it matters more than people realize. When you calculate your emergency fund based on your expenses, you literally are just preparing to survive. You are calculating the bare minimum your household needs to function. Okay. You're assuming that nothing unexpected will come up besides your known bills. And anybody that's listening right now, you know that's not true. Okay. Listen. A true financial emergency under that assumption fails miserably. This is what you don't hear out here in these financial streets. When your income stops, the emergencies do not stop. Literally, case in point, both incomes gone. We're going to talk about that in the next section. Both incomes is gone. And somebody just vandalized our car. Okay? They just, in the middle of that. So we literally, one car had to be, we went to get both of them repaired, but one car was total loss. We had to pay a deductible for both of the cars. So all I'm telling you is that was unexpected. We went to sleep, we woke up, that was the case. Okay. So I'm just telling you that if you don't, prepare for income, then you're going to be in a situation where you're only prepared for the bare minimum, which are your expenses. So 3 to 6 months of expenses. I mean, saving is saving. Okay. Like saving, I want you to save, but 3 to 6 months of expenses actually puts you in a situation that, will literally not further you. Okay. All right. And that's what really nobody tells you. Life does not stop when your income stops. Okay. The bare minimum is not enough. You are assuming that nothing unexpected will come up besides your known bills. And in a true financial emergency, that is not true, because the medical bill will still arrive. The car still breaks down. In my situation, the car still got vandalized. The child still needs something that you did not plan for. Life does not pause because your paycheck did. Life does not pause because your paycheck did. And if your emergency fund only covers your expenses, you are completely unprepared for the unexpected expenses that will show up inside the emergency. I know this because I lived it. Okay. And I told you guys 1 year, April 30th of last year, the year before, I lost my job. Okay. My husband's like, do your thug thizzle. Got you. I'ma cover the house. October of that same year, lost his job, wiped out. So 2 very strong incomes were gone in the same year, gone in the same season. And what kept our family, thank you, Lord, the Lord, okay? But what kept our family also from a complete financial collapse was not that we just saved. It was that we had saved based on income. We had savings that felt like income because it was built from income, okay? And when those 2 paycheck stops, we could still handle what came at us, even though it was difficult. It was not fun. It was not, it was a little, nah. All right. And so we were prepared, not just on the paychecks. I mean, not just on the expenses that we expected, but really on the things that life kept throwing at us while we were already down. Okay. Life did not stop because our paycheck stopped. So that is really the difference between saving for expenses and saving for income. Okay. That's why I say 3 to 6 months worth of income. Expenses prepare you to survive. Income prepares you to actually navigate. Okay, now I want to be honest with you. Building 3 to 6 months of savings is a bigger goal than 3 to 6 months of expenses. 3 to 6 months worth of income versus 3 to 6 months worth of expenses, totally different. Okay, it is harder to build 3 to 6 months worth of income. I acknowledge that. But what I want to do is I want to empower you to start small. Like literally start small, because you never know when that difficult season is going to come, and you want to be prepared either way. And so you really want to make sure you don't just have enough just to pay bills. So this is how you can do this. I want you to take your average monthly take home pay. So look at the take home pay, average it out, and figure out what that monthly is. Now, this is the money that actually hits your account, right? This is net, the money that actually hits your bank account. And then I want you to multiply it by 3. So let's just say your net paycheck, right? That bottom line number that's direct deposited in your account is $3,000 blah 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 dollars. You're gonna take that and times it by 3. Yeah, over $9,000. Exactly. I know. Oh, it's not going to be easy. But what I want you to do, and then again, I want you to multiply it by 6. That is a fully funded emergency fund. Okay. If you have a household with 2 incomes, what you're going to do is you're going to calculate it based on whichever income is higher. I would like for you to look at it from both angles, because if your income is surviving off of a 2 income household right now, both of y'all incomes need to be in that mix. Okay. So if the household income is $6,000 a month, then 6 times 3. Okay, not easy. I know, Crystal girl, we is in the midst of the struggles is real. I get it. But this is what I want you to remember. Start where you are. Build toward income. Remember that every dollar you put in that account before the hard season is wisdom. God has given you the wisdom, and you have the ability to apply that wisdom. Okay, so it's not a lack of faith that I'm just putting this money aside. I'm putting this money aside because I expect that God is not going to come through. No, it is a season of wisdom. Like the ants set aside stuff and hoard things in certain seasons. You got to be wise. And that is the wisdom that we need to recognize, that it is powerful to be a good steward in certain seasons so that I am prepared for every season. Okay. We are living proof that the Lord combined with wisdom to save in the stronger income months is what gets a family through a season that should have broken them financially. It did not break us. Okay. We're still navigating the season. The savings still held, the savings and investments. And listen, if you do it right, it will hold for you too. So I want to encourage you, start small. That big goal that's in your mind, it seems so big. And it's like, girl, Crystal, stop talking to me, because that's just seemed too much. But I want to empower you that even if you start $5, $10, $25, and then you're like, okay, I can do $50, I can do $100. Anyway, it lets you know that I'm reaching for this goal. So if the goal is off, then that's already an issue. But if you got the goal in mind, and even if you start where you are, it is powerful. Okay, so let's get to the next one. Next question is, Crystal, where do I keep this emergency fund at? Great question. I recommend you not keep it in the same bank or financial institution that your checking account is. Listen, you got your checking account, you see your savings account. It is one click away from an impulse decision. And we have seen it, we have done it, okay? Brunch day, movie day, I'm going out, I'm doing all the things. I want to give me a little food, transfer. So what happens is your savings account becomes a glorified checking account and it becomes transactional, which is not the purpose of it. I would recommend that you do not keep it in the same financial institution where your primary checking account is, because when you see it, you transfer. It's just psychologically and practically, it's not the best thing for you. What I would recommend, and NerdWallet did not sponsor this video yet, but I love going to NerdWallet because when you go on there, you're able to find the highest APY savings account. So you go in there and you find, online savings accounts are my favorite because they offer higher interest rates. And so Ally has been one of my favorites, but most of them right now are offering 4% interest rates. And this is not a CD. It's not money set aside, all of that. It is literally a high yield savings account. You're putting money into that account. This is your interest rate and it is liquid and accessible. One of the biggest issues is if you take that money, you put it into a retirement account, you put it into something else that's an investment vehicle, and you need it for an emergency, which is what it's for, you're going to have to deal with penalties. You're going to have to deal with pulling it out. You may have to pay taxes on it. So the biggest benefit is to put it somewhere set aside in a high yield savings account that is liquid and accessible. But it does take 1 to 2 days for you to get it sometimes. And that's good because if it's just one click away, you transfer it over from your savings account to your checking account, it's too easy. And so that's why a lot of us may have a glorified checking account. We call it a savings account. We call it our emergency fund. But if you really look at the transactions and all the transfers, it is a checking account. Okay. So the goal is put it aside, set it aside, out of sight, out of mind, let it grow interest while it's growing. Maybe set up some automatic transfers going into there. Even if it's like every pay period, I'm paying $50 or $25 or $100 every pay period or whatever. And it's going there automatically. Anything that you got to think about is a problem. So the way to continue to build that fund is once you create your budget is that you say, okay, I need to, every pay period, I need to put, $100 into the savings account, set up automatic transfers to that account and let it just grow over time. The first time we hit over 10K in our savings account, and it was years ago, I literally was like, wow, that was crazy because all I've been doing, it's just every paycheck, it was out of sight, out of mind, but you need to put it on an automated system that it works without you having to work, because the likelihood of you actually sending that transfer every single pay period is slim to none. Okay, so set it up, forget it, and let it just grow. And then remember, which we're about to talk about, how do we define an emergency? So, Crystal, what counts as an emergency? I get this question constantly. Yes, a job loss is an emergency. Yes, a major medical expense is an emergency. Yes, a car breakdown that prevents you from going back and forth to work where you make your money is an emergency. Yes, a major home repair that affects safety or habitat, like you being able to inhabit that home, is an emergency. No, a sale is not an emergency. No, a concert is not an emergency. No, a brunch date is not an emergency. A planned expense that you forgot is not an emergency. It really is a planning gap. It is a problem that you got to work on around setting up what's called a sinking fund to prepare for those expenses. The filter I use with clients is this, okay? And I want to ask you this, to ask yourself. Ask yourself these two questions. I want you to ask this. I want you to be truly honest. Was this expense completely unforeseeable, completely unexpected, came out of nowhere? Was this expense completely unforeseeable? The next thing I want you to ask yourself is, does it affect your ability to meet your basic needs, okay, or keep your household functioning? If I don't have this money, does it affect my basic needs or prevent me from keeping this household function? If the answer to both of those is yes, then it's an emergency. If the answer to either of those is no, then it's not an emergency. I want you to remember to guard your emergency fund, because once you spend it for something that it was not intended to do, you have to rebuild from zero. And a true emergency is not going to wait for you to do that. It's not going to wait for you to rebuild. I cannot talk about emergency funds without talking about what it means to spiritually have one. Honestly, have had people tell me that an emergency fund can be seen as a lack of faith. That if you trust God, you do not need a backup plan, which is insane. Okay. And I want to address that directly because I do believe that because I hear it so often, it is financially damaging beliefs that I need to debunk. Okay. So if you look at Proverbs, if we look at the scripture, let's look at the word of God. Okay. Proverbs 21:20 says, there is precious treasure in oil in the dwelling of the wise, but a foolish man swallows it up. Foolish man swallows it up. Are you foolish or you wise? Proverbs 6:6-8 says the ant, and I was just talking about this, but describes that the ant stores up provision in summer so that it has enough in winter. It literally said, consider the ants. Okay. Think about the ants, right? So neither of these passages is about a lack of faith, just so we're clear. It is not about a lack of faith. It literally is about wisdom and stewardship. It is about the fact that God has given me this income, these resources, and with stewardship, I am wise enough to be able to store up, and about understanding that because God gave me the ability to plan, my ability, right? He gave me the ability. Me using that ability is actually a way of honoring him. That's powerful. Trusting God with your finances does not mean being unprepared for what life brings. It means stewarding what he gave you in a way that honors him and protects the household that he has given you to steward well. He entrusted it to you, friend. He did. He entrusted it. An emergency fund is one of the most faith-forward decisions financially that you can make because it frees you to give generously. It frees you up to give generously. Yes, it does. To serve boldly. Yes, it does. And to trust God in the big decisions without the constant anxiety, because we got to talk about this, the constant anxiety of one unexpected expense away from a crisis. Because some of us, if we be honest, you are one unexpected expense away from a true crisis. Faith and preparations are not opposite. They are partners. So lastly, there may be people that say, Crystal, that sounds so amazing, but how do you actually build when you have nothing? Nothing. Okay. I really want to deal with this because I do feel like when it comes to financial content, that this is the part that is really skipped. Okay. Because it is easy for someone to tell you that you need to save 3 to 6 months worth of expenses and all the things when you have money to spare. It is easy to say that when you have money to spare, but what about when the money is already tight? What if you are the 55% of Americans where your financial situation is already getting worse? What if that is you? So here is the honest answer, because I know there is somebody that is listening to this right now and you literally are like, girl, I'm already fighting for my life. I don't know how to save this. I want to give you these tools. Start small, friend. You have to build small, consistent, non-negotiable increments. Okay. So the step one, I want you to identify one expense that you can reduce. All right. For the next 90 days and redirect that small amount, whatever that small dollar amount. I don't care if it was a Netflix. I don't care if it was $11 subscription. I don't care if it was reducing $30 on your grocery bill or whatever that expense is. I want you to incrementally set it aside as, now I've canceled this, I've reduced this. Now I want that money to go into my starter emergency fund. Okay. So canceling a subscription. All right. Something you ain't used. Honestly, look at your budget and be like, I don't need this right now. Maybe it was a gym membership. I don't need this. I could walk around the neighborhood. I could do this or whatever. And I talked about that in another video. Go back and watch that. That may feel slow. That honestly, somebody listening right now is like, yeah, that sounds cool, whatever, but it'll take me forever to get there based on $50 here and there. Right. I know it feels slow, but I want you to know that from working with my clients for years, one of the biggest things that I understand is the people who wait until they can save a large amount, they actually rarely start. I'm just waiting for me to get that big $5,000, the $10,000, whatever. Rarely start. So we're not waiting for a big influx day. We're building that small incremental habit. And that is the biggest thing I really want you to understand, is that you can start small even if it is slow. You can start small even if it is slow. So the people that start a small, consistent amount almost always build a full emergency fund. I want that to be very clear because of those small, consistent increments over time. Consistency beats capacity every time. Consistency, working out, building wealth, all of that. Consistency beats capacity every single time. Step 2 is to automate. To do not think about this. Literally, automatically, when your direct deposit hits into into your account, let's just say you get paid on the 15th and the 30th, you're going to set up an automatic transfer from your checking account to your high yield savings account every single 15th and 30th. Whatever that predestined amount is, because you've done your budget, because you're so smart. You've done your budget. Whatever that predestined amount is, you're going to actually set up that automatic transfer to go out of the account. Remember, anything you got to think about, you have to do on your own is a lot of work. So before you spend it, before you talk yourself out of it, automate it, and then leave it alone. Leave it alone. Mind your business. That's your savings account. Mind your business. Okay. Step 3 is to assign every unexpected dollar to this emergency fund. Okay. Tax refund. Somebody gave you money, birthday money. Okay. Side income, side hustle here and there. Somebody gave you a gift, whatever. Every dollar that is unexpected, a portion of the unexpected inflow. So a portion, I'm not even saying spend all of it, send it all over. No, I'm just saying a portion of it, because it was unexpected income, goes into your emergency fund until it is fully funded. You do not inflate or elevate your lifestyle until your emergency fund is built. The emergency fund comes before the upgrade. The emergency fund comes before the upgrade. Okay, here's what we covered today. An emergency fund is money that is set aside exclusively for unplanned emergencies. Not once, not planned expenses, but emergencies only. Number 2, we talked about your target is 3 to 6 months of income, not merely expenses, because we're going from just surviving to ensuring that we are prepared truly. Start with $1,000 as your first milestones, okay? If you can get $1,000, that gives you the momentum to keep working towards whatever that goal is that we talked about how to calculate. Keep it in a high yield savings account. If you don't know where to go to Nerd Wallet. It is one of my favorite platforms. Again, they did not sponsor this video. I just use it a lot with my financial coaching sessions. And look up high yield savings account to be able to do your research and compare the alternatives. But right now, most high yield savings accounts are around 4%. So that's money that's just sitting on the table in interest that you could be earning by just setting your money aside. And set it up in a separate institution from your checking account. Remember, separate. Okay. Build with small, consistent annual or monthly or per paycheck contributions. Those small contributions that happen over time, just smallly start, but make sure it is non-negotiable and is already set up to be automated. Do not wait until you can save or set aside a large amount. Okay. Guard it. Every dollar you spend on a non-emergency, you have to rebuild. Okay. Every dollar you have to spend on a non-emergency, you have to rebuild before the real emergency comes. And remember, your emergency is not going to wait for you to rebuild. Okay. And with 55% of Americans saying their financial situation is getting worse right now, the emergency fund is not a someday goal. It is a right now priority. So here's the thing. If this video made you understand that I do not have an emergency fund, if something was to happen, like I lost my job, walked into a meeting thinking it was a meeting, and we all walked out with severance packages, or my husband had one meeting and they did a restructuring and lost his job, right? If that was to happen to your situation right now, and I'm not fear mongering, I just want to make sure you are very conscious. If that was to happen, do I have money set aside to prepare to make sure my bills are paid, to make sure my kids are good, to make sure any unexpected expenses is prepared? If not, I need to start an emergency fund like yesterday. So I want you to remember that this is so important, and it is a urgent right now priority. All right, y'all, if this video hit you today in any way, shape, form, or fashion, then I want you to realize that an emergency fund is needed and it is yours. You are able to build this thing. And I want you to actually comment in the comment section. I want you to say, my emergency fund is a priority and I will build it now. My emergency fund is a priority that I will build now. Or you can simply put, I got this, in the comments so we can celebrate you. And if this conversation is really needed in your circle, send this to somebody. Somebody might be one paycheck away from losing it all, one financial crisis away, and you could be the one that helped change that by sending this video over to them. You don't got to do the work besides sharing the video. Listen, I am super proud of you for even considering and even watching this far, and I really do hope that you will start working on building your emergency fund. I love you all, and I'm so proud of you, and I will see you in the next video. Talk to you later.
When I think about His grace, there's freedom, something like a woman prays.